In this video, I'm reviewing the brake-free brake light to try and help you to decide if it's worth the $160 price tag. I'm going to show you how well it works during engine braking, hard braking, coasting, its daytime and nighttime visibility, the battery life, the different lighting modes, and go over the mounting system. So let's kick off this review by seeing how well the brake light responds to engine braking to see just how sensitive it really is. Now, real quick, before we start this, it's important for you to know that the bike I am riding is electric. Specifically, it's the Talaria MX4. And in order to best simulate engine braking, for those of you out there with a motorcycle that have a gas engine, I'm using regen speeds 1, 2, and 3 on my bike, with regen level 3 being equivalent to a pretty aggressive downshift, level 2 being similar to normal engine braking, and then regen level 1 being about the same as just letting off the throttle and coasting. Now, it's also important for you to know that I am doing speeds of around 20 to 40 miles per hour in most of all these videos, unless otherwise noted. So having set the stage for this video, let's take a look at how well the brake light responds using regen level 2. I'm letting off the throttle right as I approach the camera, and you can see that the brake light is already activated as I come into view. It stays illuminated for about 5 seconds as I decelerate and then turns off. For this second pass, I slowed down to around 20 miles per hour to see whether or not speed would affect anything at all. And as you can see, the light still activates, but it stays on for a much shorter amount of time. Now, for this next test, I'm switching to regen speed 1, which is essentially the equivalent of letting off the throttle on a motorcycle and coasting. I started this test at around 30 to 40 miles per hour, and the brake light activates as soon as I let off the throttle and stays on for pretty much the entire time as I decelerate. For the second pass, I slowed down again to around 20 miles per hour. The brake light does activate when I let off the throttle, but it stays on for barely even a second. However, you'll then notice that the light does activate again when I actually apply my brakes at the stop sign. So now let's bump the regen level up to 3. In these clips, you'll see that it activates and stays lit for pretty much the entire deceleration. And then for this pass, I was going much slower like I did with other regen speeds. And again, it activated, but for a much shorter period of time. But as I increased my speed and went faster for this third pass, it stayed on the whole time. So it seems as if the faster you were going and the more deceleration that is happening, the longer the brake light will stay on. I also wanted to point out how quickly the brake light responds to deceleration, because as you will see in these clips, as soon as I throw my hand up to the side of my helmet to indicate to you as the viewer I'm letting off the throttle, it immediately activates. So the response time to deceleration is incredibly fast. Alright, so now that we've looked at how well this brake light activates with engine braking, let's now take a look at some clips of me slamming my brakes on to simulate an emergency braking scenario. And in all of these clips, you will notice that it works flawlessly every time I slam my brakes on, which is fantastic. If you are ever in a situation in which you have to come to a sudden stop, it would be safe to assume that this light will activate. Although this light is not meant to be a replacement for your brake light, it is just additional safety. Okay, so the next topic to cover in this review is how bright is it in broad daylight, because most of all the clips I've shown up until this point have been late evening. So for this first video, I'm letting off the throttle right after passing the camera so you can see when the brake light turns on. Now, it does look a little bit more dim in the video, but I would argue that this is very noticeable in person, especially to the naked eye. I don't know if it's as bright as the brake lights on a car, but I would argue anyone would easily be able to see this and tell that it's lit up in bright red. I couldn't find any official lumen ratings for the brake light on the manufacturer's website, but there were some third-party retailers and distributors that claim the brake light peaks at 500 lumens when it's fully activated. I've had this thing flashbang me a few times while holding my helmet in my hands, and it is crazy bright and it hurts your eyes to look at. So having looked at the daytime brightness, let's now do a nighttime test. And I think the videos here are going to speak for themselves. This thing is extremely bright and highly noticeable at night. If someone does not see this thing lit up at night on the back of your head, you've got bigger problems to worry about. Alright, so moving on from the nighttime tests, let's now switch gears and take a look at the several different lighting modes this brake light has to offer. There are 3 modes in total, which range from these 2 lines right here to totally lit up to flashing, kind of like a hazard. And to change the modes on it, you simply just press the button right here on top of the light. Just click it once and it changes. My personal favorite to use is the solid 2 lines because although it is the least noticeable light mode, it does make it extremely obvious when the brake light actually turns on. Okay, so the next topic to go over is the standby feature. This light will turn off and go into standby mode if it does not detect any motion within 45 seconds. And it is extremely sensitive, so you don't have to worry about this light turning off while you're riding. Like I said, it's very sensitive. But as soon as it does detect motion again, as you'll see in the video, it immediately turns back on. Now you can also fully turn it off by holding down the power button for 3 to 5 seconds. Now this leads me into my next topic of discussion, which is battery life. The manufacturer states that it has a battery life of 8 to 12 hours before needing to be recharged. But in my real world testing, it has lasted me way longer than that. I charged this thing when I first got it, and after a month of riding, the battery is still indicating that it is at least 75% full. When you turn it on, the light will flash to indicate the charge level. 1 flash equals low battery, less than 35%. 2 flashes is 30 to 75% charge, and 3 flashes means you have over 75% battery left. For context, I ride my bike to work every day and my commute is around 8 minutes. I also go home for lunch every day, so I'm making a total of 4 trips for a total drive time around 30 minutes every day. So over the course of a week, I am riding with this light on for a total of 2.5 hours, give or take. And after a month of riding, the battery indicator is still showing over 75% charge, which is very impressive. So now that we've covered the battery, let's now move on to mounting the light to your helmet. Inside the box, you will have 2 adhesive mounting brackets with pre-installed 3M adhesive on them. These are what you will stick to the back of your helmet. One is an extra large mount designed for larger helmets, while the other is a standard size mount, better suited for small to medium helmets. Once the mount is attached, the brake light will simply slide onto it and you'll hear it click securely into place. And then it's also designed to just slide back off whenever you need to remove it. Now, that's where I ran into a bit of an issue here because I can't seem to get mine to slide back off without feeling like I'm going to rip the adhesive mount right off the helmet with it. So unfortunately, I'm not able to actually demonstrate the mounting process for you because mine is locked in place and I don't want to potentially rip off the mount trying to get it off. Honestly, though, it's not a huge problem for me, or if it were to happen to you potentially, because once it's installed, there's really no reason to ever need to remove it unless you're replacing your helmet, which in that case, you would just remove the adhesive mount anyway. If anything, this just gives me a lot of confidence in how secure the mounting system is because once this light is latched on, it is for sure not going anywhere. Oh, and it's also important to mention that you don't notice this thing on your helmet at all. It only weighs about 7 ounces or 200 grams for all my non-Americans, so it is very lightweight. All right, now there's one last topic I want to cover in this video, and that is the reliability of this brake light. Can you actually count on it to activate every single time you are slowing down? And my answer to that is going to be yes and no. Allow me to explain because it depends on the braking situation. The reason I say yes is because in all of my testing, the light activated every single time I used the brakes for a hard or emergency stop. I never had an issue with it failing to turn on when I was actually using the brake lever and coming to a hard stop. But where things get less consistent is when you're slowing down using engine braking, or in my case, regen braking, or just coasting. In those situations, it doesn't always recognize that you're decelerating. This clip right here is a perfect example of that because I am using regen level 3, which again is, like I said, is a pretty aggressive regen that is, I'd say, the equivalent of dropping a couple of gears on a motorcycle if not actually applying the brake. And throughout this entire clip, as I'm slowing down from 40 miles an hour down to 0, the brake light never activates nor detects the deceleration at all. Now, what's interesting is that in almost every other test I ran using level 3 regen from speeds up to 40 miles an hour, the brake light activated exactly as expected. So based on my experience, I would say you can absolutely rely on this brake light to activate if you're using your brakes and coming to a hard stop. But when it comes to slowing down with regen braking or engine braking, I can't confidently say that the activation is going to be 100% consistent. So is the brake-free brake light for your motorcycle helmet worth the $160 price tag? Ultimately, that's up for you to decide, and I truly do hope this video has helped you come to a decision. If you did find it helpful, I would appreciate a like and a comment on this video, as that's going to help other people to see this review and help me out as well. Or if you hated it and thought it was just terrible, let me know that as well. So with that, guys, thanks for watching, And as always, stay glousy, my friends.